For decades, the conflict between Iran and Israel was a clandestine affair. It was a shadow war, fought through proxies, cyber attacks, and targeted assassinations. The world grew accustomed to this simmering, yet contained hostility. Iran would arm groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. Israel would conduct covert operations against Iran's nuclear program. It was a deadly game with unspoken rules. But on June 17, 2025, those rules were shattered. The long-feared escalation from indirect confrontation to direct, state-on-state warfare became a terrifying reality. This isn't a proxy fight anymore. This is Iran and Israel, two of the region's most formidable military powers, openly attacking each other's sovereign territory. The shift was sudden and seismic. It followed a daring Israeli airstrike that killed several high-ranking Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps commanders at a consulate in a neighboring country. Tehran, which had often vowed severe revenge, decided this time was different. Instead of retaliating through its regional allies, the supreme leader authorized a direct military response against Israel. The world watched, holding its breath, as the first wave of Iranian missiles and drones lifted off, crossing Iraqi and Jordanian airspace. The shadow war had burst violently into the open, marking the start of a dangerous new chapter for West Asia and the entire world. This transition from covert to overt warfare is what makes the current situation so perilous. The previous framework, however violent, had a degree of predictability. Both sides understood the potential for escalation and generally operated within certain limits. Now, those limits have been erased. Each direct attack demands a direct response, creating a cycle of retaliation that is incredibly difficult to break. The strategic calculations have changed. It's no longer about sending a message through a third party. It's about demonstrating national strength and willingness to inflict direct pain. We are now on the fourth day of this conflict, and the initial shock has given way to a grim new normal. The Rubicon has been crossed. The fighting is not confined to the shadows or distant proxy battlefields. It is happening in the skies above Tel Aviv and Isfahan. It is being felt in homes, schools, and hospitals. For the first time, Iranian and Israeli citizens are experiencing direct attacks from a state-level adversary. This is the unthinkable war the diplomats and analysts warned about for years. It is no longer a theoretical scenario. It is a lived, daily horror for millions of people caught in the middle. Iran's opening salvo was a display of calculated force, designed to overwhelm and intimidate. In the pre-dawn hours of the first day, an estimated 350 projectiles were launched toward Israel. This massive barrage included a mix of sophisticated ballistic missiles, slower but numerous cruise missiles, and waves of Shahd-style attack drones. The targets were widespread, ranging from military installations in the southern Negev desert to strategic sites near major population centers in central Israel. The sheer scale of the attack was intended not only to inflict damage, but also to saturate Israel's vaunted air defense systems, testing their limits in a way they had never been tested before. While Israel's multi-layered air defense, including the Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow systems, intercepted the vast majority of threats, it was not impenetrable. Some missiles managed to break through. A military airbase at Nevatim suffered direct hits, causing significant damage to runways and infrastructure. More tragically, the impact on civilians was immediate and terrifying. In the city of Beersheba, missile debris rained down on a residential neighborhood, killing a young girl and injuring dozens more. The psychological impact was immense, as sirens blared across the country and Israelis rushed to bomb shelters. Their sense of security shattered by the unprecedented direct assault from Iranian soil. The attacks have not been a one-off event. Over the past 4 days, Iran has continued to launch smaller, more targeted waves of missiles and drones. These subsequent strikes seem aimed at maintaining pressure and demonstrating that Iran's offensive capabilities are not depleted. One wave targeted infrastructure around the port city of Haifa, causing fires at an oil refinery. Another focused on a different airbase near Tel Aviv. Each attack renews the terror for civilians. For people living in southern Israel, the constant threat has become unbearable. Families spend their nights in shelters, and the streets are eerily empty as people fear being caught outside during a strike. The victims of these attacks are overwhelmingly ordinary people, not the political or military leaders who made the decision to go to war. We have seen reports of at least 25 civilian deaths in Israel so far, with over 400 injured, many of them from shrapnel, or the shockwaves of explosions. These are not soldiers. They are families, shopkeepers, and children whose lives have been upended. The Iranian strategy appears to be a war of attrition, hoping to exhaust Israel's expensive interceptor missiles and sow fear and division within Israeli society. But for those on the ground, it is simply a relentless wave of terror from the sky. Israel's response has been swift, precise, and devastatingly effective. Rather than engaging in a tit-for-tat missile exchange, the Israeli Air Force has focused its counterattacks on military and strategic targets deep inside Iran. Leveraging its advanced F-35 stealth fighters, Israel has conducted targeted airstrikes designed to degrade Iran's offensive capabilities and punish the regime for its aggression. The goal is clear: to re-establish deterrence and make the cost of attacking Israel prohibitively high for Tehran. The strikes are a powerful message that Israeli military reach is long and its intelligence is precise. In the initial 24 hours following Iran's first barrage, Israeli warplanes struck key Revolutionary Guard bases in Kermanshah and Khuzestan provinces, the very sites from which many of the missiles were launched. Satellite imagery confirmed the destruction of missile launchers, command and control bunkers, and drone manufacturing facilities. These strikes were not just punitive, they were strategically surgical, aimed at crippling Iran's ability to sustain its long-range assault. Subsequent raids have targeted nuclear-related sites, though carefully avoiding the reactors themselves. One strike reportedly destroyed the electrical substations powering the Isfahan nuclear facility, a clear warning of Israel's capacity to inflict more severe damage if it chooses. The impact on Iran's military infrastructure has been significant. Analysts estimate that Israel's campaign has set back Iran's ballistic missile program by several years. Key commanders and technicians have been eliminated, and critical components for both drones and missiles have been destroyed. The strikes are also designed to expose the vulnerabilities of Iran's own air defense systems, which have struggled to intercept the sophisticated Israeli aircraft. This has created a sense of anxiety within the Iranian military establishment, which had long believed its strategic depth provided a buffer against direct Israeli attack. Now, that assumption lies in ruins amidst the rubble of their own bases. However, these precision strikes are not without consequence for the Iranian people. While Israel claims to be avoiding civilian casualties, the reality on the ground is more complex. Airstrikes on military facilities located near urban areas have resulted in collateral damage. In the city of Isfahan, windows were shattered for miles around after a strike on a nearby airbase, and reports from local sources speak of civilians killed and injured by debris and secondary explosions. The Iranian government has downplayed these incidents, but for the people living near these targeted sites, the fear of an Israeli counterattack is now a constant companion, just as the fear of Iranian missiles is for Israelis. Behind the strategic calculations and military jargon, there is honestly a profound human tragedy unfolding. For the ordinary people of both Israel and Iran, this war has transformed daily life into a paralyzing state of fear and uncertainty. The conflict is not some distant headline. It's the scream of an air raid siren in the middle of the night, the terrifying whistle of an incoming missile, and the heart-stopping wait in a cramped bomb shelter. It's the frantic phone calls to loved ones after news of an explosion. The primary victims of this war are not the generals in their secure bunkers or the politicians delivering defiant speeches, but the civilians who never asked for this fight. In Israel, the illusion of a protected home front has been shattered. While most have access to shelters, the psychological toll is just immense. Schools are closed indefinitely. The economy is grinding to a halt as businesses shut down and workers stay home. In southern towns like Sderot and Ashkelon, which have long endured rocket fire from Gaza, this feels like a nightmare on an unimaginable new scale. The threat is no longer just a crude short-range rocket, but a powerful ballistic missile that can level an entire building. The constant anxiety is leading to a mental health crisis, with reports of panic attacks and severe stress, especially among children who cannot comprehend the politics behind the terror. Across the border in Iran, the situation is equally dire, though it's reported very differently. The Iranian state media tightly controls the narrative, focusing on military defiance and national pride. Yet, fear is pervasive. In cities like Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tehran, the sound of Israeli jets overhead, followed by the thunder of explosions, has brought the reality of war home. Unlike in Israel, there is no nationwide system of public bomb shelters or a sophisticated early warning app. Civilians are left to their own devices, huddling in basements or interior rooms, praying they are not near a military target. The sense of helplessness is, honestly, just profound. The stories emerging from both sides paint a grim picture of shared suffering. An Israeli paramedic describes pulling a family from a rubble-strewn apartment. An Iranian shopkeeper speaks of his windows shattering as a nearby base was hit, his children screaming in terror. The official casualty numbers, around 25 civilians killed in Israel and an estimated 80 in Iran, do not capture the full scope of the trauma. Hundreds more are injured, thousands are displaced, and millions are living in a state of constant dread. This is the true cost of the conflict, paid in the currency of civilian lives and shattered peace. A critical difference in this conflict lies in the civilian defense infrastructure available to Israel and Iran. This disparity has a direct and, honestly, significant impact on the human experience of the war. In Israel, decades of facing existential threats have led to one of the world's most comprehensive civil defense systems. By law, all new apartments and homes must be built with a reinforced safe room, known as a mamad. Older buildings have communal bomb shelters, and public shelters are widespread. This physical infrastructure is coupled with advanced technology, including a sophisticated siren network and a mobile app that provides real-time alerts of incoming threats. This system, while not perfect, provides crucial protection and psychological reassurance for Israeli civilians. When the sirens wail, people know where to go and what to do. The protocol is ingrained in the national consciousness. Children practice drills in schools, and families have emergency kits prepared. The Iron Dome and other aerial defense systems provide a further shield, creating a sense of being defended. This allows for a semblance of resilience, a belief that the state is protecting its people, vital for maintaining morale during intense crisis. In stark contrast, Iran lacks a comparable nationwide system for protecting its civilian population. While military facilities are heavily fortified, public infrastructure for civil defense is minimal, especially in residential areas. There are no laws mandating private shelters, and public shelters are rare and poorly maintained. The country's early warning systems are rudimentary, offering little advance notice for civilians to take cover. This leaves ordinary Iranians feeling exposed and vulnerable, with their safety largely a matter of luck. When Israeli jets strike targets near urban centers, the risk to civilians is exponentially higher. Families are forced to improvise, seeking refuge in basements, cellars, or any part of their home for protection. The state focuses on projecting offensive military power, not on defensive measures for its own people. This creates a terrifying reality where promises of revenge offer no safety from immediate retaliation. For Iranians, there is no mamad, no reliable siren, only hope that the next explosion is not too close. The United States has been thrust into the heart of this crisis, forced to walk a precarious diplomatic and military tightrope. The Biden administration's official stance is one of ironclad support for Israel's security, a long-standing pillar of American foreign policy. US forces in the region actively participated in defending Israel against the initial Iranian barrage, with American jets and naval destroyers intercepting dozens of drones and missiles. President Biden has been in constant communication with Prime Minister Netanyahu, coordinating defensive strategies and reaffirming America's commitment. The White House's primary goal is to prevent the conflict from escalating into a wider regional war that could draw in US troops directly. Publicly, American leaders are urging restraint from both sides, though their pleas are directed more forcefully toward Israel to prevent a catastrophic cycle of retaliation. The Secretary of State has been engaged in frantic shuttle diplomacy, speaking with European and Arab partners to build a unified front to de-escalate the crisis. Washington is attempting to offer Israel an off-ramp by framing the successful defense against Iran's initial attack as a major strategic victory in itself, one that does not require a massive counter-offensive. However, this advice is running up against Israel's own sovereign security concerns and its determination to re-establish deterrence on its own terms. Beneath this official response, however, lies a deeply divided American political landscape. The conflict has exposed the growing fissures within Washington on foreign policy. Within the Democratic Party, a vocal progressive wing is condemning Israel's retaliatory strikes, highlighting civilian casualties in Iran and calling for an immediate ceasefire. They argue that unconditional US support for Israel is enabling the escalation and are demanding that the administration use its leverage, including military aid, to force a halt to the fighting. This puts President Biden in a difficult position, caught between his party's base and the traditional pro-Israel consensus. On the other side of the aisle, many Republicans are advocating for a more muscular approach. They criticize the administration for what they see as weakness and appeasement toward Iran, arguing that the US should be providing more direct and overt military support to Israel's offensive operations. Some influential senators are even calling for direct American strikes against Iranian military targets. This political polarization complicates the administration's ability to forge a sustainable policy. The debate is no longer just about how to support an ally, but about the fundamental role of the United States in West Asia, and there is honestly no easy answer that can satisfy all sides. As we mark the fourth day of this unprecedented war, the future of West Asia hangs precariously in the balance. The immediate path forward is shrouded in uncertainty, with every action from Tehran or Jerusalem carrying the potential for catastrophic escalation. One terrifying possibility is that the tit-for-tat strikes spiral out of control, drawing in other regional actors. Iran could activate its most powerful proxy, Hezbollah, which boasts an arsenal of over 150,000 rockets and missiles on Israel's northern border. A second front with Hezbollah would transform this conflict into a multi-front war, stretching Israel's military and civilian defenses to their breaking point. The international community is desperately trying to pull the region back from the brink. The United Nations Security Council has held emergency sessions, but has been paralyzed by vetoes and disagreements. Regional powers like Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Jordan are caught in an impossible position. While they view Iran as a threat, they also fear being caught in the crossfire of a full-scale war that would devastate their economies and destabilize their societies. Diplomatic channels are buzzing with calls for restraint. But these appeals may be too little, too late, as national pride and strategic imperatives drive the combatants toward further conflict. Is there any hope for de-escalation? A slim possibility exists if one side feels it has achieved its objectives and can declare a victory without needing to retaliate further. Perhaps Israel, having demonstrated its military superiority and ability to strike at will inside Iran, will decide that deterrence has been restored. Or perhaps Iran, having proven its willingness to directly attack Israel, will feel its honor has been satisfied. Back-channel negotiations, possibly mediated by countries like Oman or Qatar, might be underway to find a face-saving way for both sides to step back. But in the fog of war, such rational calculations are often lost to emotion and political pressure. Ultimately, the most pressing question is what happens to the people of the region if this war continues its deadly trajectory. What will life be like for the children in Tel Aviv and Tehran who now associate the sound of a jet with terror? How will societies on both sides recover from the psychological wounds of this conflict? The leaders who began this war may speak of strategic gains and red lines, but for millions of ordinary civilians, the only reality is loss. The world watches and waits, hoping for a peace that seems ever more distant, leaving the fate of an entire region hanging by a thread.